his family and friends. Order, order. We start with questions to the Secretary of State for Education, Andrew Jones.
Question 1, Mr. Speaker.
Secretary of State. Thank you. Mr. Speaker, we join with the comments as well. Our thoughts are with the family of Tommy McElvoy. With permission, Mr. Speaker, Madam Deputy Speaker, with permission, I will answer questions 1 and 18 together. Thanks to this Conservative government, nearly 70% of all occupations are accessible via an apprenticeship, and this is far greater reach than countries admired for their technical education, such as Germany and Switzerland. Now, I'm sure many of you joined the Prime Minister, Chancellor and more than 60 ministerial colleagues who were out and about during National Apprenticeship Week, and I was delighted to join Harry, Chloe and other EDF apprentices off the coast of Blyth and apprentices launching exciting careers at JP Morgan in the city. Apprenticeships are the route to a successful career, no matter where you live or what you want to do.
Can I thank my honourable friend for that answer? Last month, the Prime Minister visited the Harrogate Bus Company to view the new fleet of electric buses and meet the company's apprentices. But can my right honourable friend detail how the government will ensure that new apprenticeship routes are available in the fast-developing sectors of the economy, such as digitisation and the growth of AI, or the sectors to deliver our decarbonisation pledge, including those new zero-emission buses in Harrogate and Knaresborough?
Well, I'd like to thank my honourable friend for his support at the recent Parliamentary Apprenticeship Fair. And, of course, our apprenticeship programme is future-focused, and it's very important that it is. It includes a new battery manufacturing technician apprenticeship, which will benefit electric buses, and others, including charging point installation and electric vehicle maintenance. Whether through T-levels, HTQs or apprenticeships, there are more training opportunities in industries of the future than ever before, in everything from AI to net zero.
Peter Aldous.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. I'm most grateful to my right honourable friend for those answers. And indeed, progress is being made, though the feedback that I'm receiving is that the current maths and English functional skills requirement is placing an obstacle in the way of a wider range of employers taking on apprentices. To remove this barrier, will my right honourable friend consider embedding English and maths elements in the apprenticeship standards so that they are relevant to the job role and employers can be confident that apprentices are acquiring the skills they need to succeed?
I thank my honourable friend for his question. The Institute for Apprenticeships and Technical Education works very closely with employers to make sure that all essential skills, including English, maths or digital, are embedded into apprenticeship standards and will continue to do so. Alongside this, we're increasing funding by 50% to help more apprentices to achieve up to a Level 2 English or maths qualification alongside their apprenticeship where they do not already hold one, to help them get on in work and in life.
Andrew Gwynne.
Thank you. As somebody who started off his working life on the job training at ICL, a computer company that now is part of Fujitsu, but we won't mention them in this house. I very much support apprenticeships, particularly at the higher and advanced level, which is what is required for occupations in information technology. I am concerned that the number of starts in apprenticeships has fallen. So what is she doing to redress that, and particularly getting kids into higher and advanced level apprenticeships?
Well, I'm sure the honourable gentleman will be delighted to learn that apprenticeship starts are up by 3% so far this year, and that's because they're backed by a record investment now hitting £2.7 billion. Never before has a government invested so much in high-quality apprenticeships and achieved so much in spreading opportunity across the country.
Jim Shannon.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I like the questionnaire and also like the Minister as well. I'm very keen to help increase the number of occupations. There are two categories that perhaps have not been considered, and I asked the Minister this question. By what discussions has the Minister had with the Department of Enterprise, Trade and Industry back home to ensure that farming and fishing can be the new apprenticeships, because there's opportunities there as well?
Well, my honourable friend puts his finger on a very important point, but we do also, I think, works with employers in farming and in fishing, and we have a number of apprenticeship standards across those industries as well, and we're always happy to work with any industry that sees an opportunity for more apprentices to be trained in their industry.
Before I call the second question, Mr. Speaker would like me to convey to the House his apologies for his absence from questions this afternoon. It's simply because he has to attend the Commonwealth service in Westminster Abbey, which is about to start at any minute now. So he is unavoidably absent from questions. Sarah Jones. I beg your pardon, I didn't put my glasses back on. Sarah Owen.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I answer to anything, clearly. Recent figures show that the worst impacted... Oh, question number 2. Sorry. We're all...
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. In 2010-11, school funding was £35 billion. Next year it will be £59.6 billion. It's the highest ever level in real terms per pupil.
Sarah Owen.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Recent figures show that the worst impacted schools in Luton North have endured more than £2 million of real-term cuts since 2010. There are school roofs with holes in, buckets scattered across corridors collecting rainwater, and entire buildings being held up by scaffolding. These are the defining images of 14 years of Conservative government. 14 years of budget cuts and teaching staff expected to do more with less. We need change. I believe children in Luton North deserve better. If the Minister agrees with me, why won't they give children what they deserve?
Well, Madam Deputy Speaker, on the point of school buildings condition, she will know that there is £1.8 billion worth of capital for maintaining and improving school buildings. On the broader questions about school funding, I think she may have been alluding, though I'm looking for some visual recognition, she may have been alluding to some figures put together by a trade union, the NEU. If so, I have to tell her we believe those figures to be flawed in multiple respects, including in assumptions they make about the money that was in schools in previous years and indeed the number of children. And I hope she will join me in celebrating the record resourcing which is rightly going in to educating children in this country.
Robin Walker.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Chairman. I welcome the fact that there is record funding in real terms flowing into our schools. But can my honourable friend on the front bench join me in looking very carefully at the case for extending funding for tutoring? We've seen this as a great success story. We have seen tutoring raise attainment in many of our schools, particularly for the most disadvantaged. When it was introduced, it was intended to be a long-term intervention. Can I urge him to continue looking at this and make sure we do find money in addition to the pupil premium to support that noble aim?
Well, Madam Deputy Speaker, I do absolutely agree that tutoring is important in multiple contexts, and particularly in the years since the pandemic, it has played a really essential part. I would also add that actually tutoring, for example, done by undergraduates can help to introduce a wider range of people to the potential of a career in teaching. And I do want tutoring to continue. As he rightly mentions, part of the function of the pupil premium is to make these interventions, and it can be spent on them.
Sarah Dyke.
Deputy Speaker, a teacher in Frome recently reached out to me and told me that there are too few pupils successful in their ECHP applications. Without a plan and the accompanying support for children's life chances, children are diminished. Can the Minister reassure my constituents that the government's plans to reform the ECHPs will still ensure that children can receive care that is personalised to their needs and not a one-size-fits-all approach to cut costs?
Madam Deputy Speaker, I absolutely wholeheartedly agree with the Honourable Lady about the central importance, how vital it is to have that support. There are, of course, now many more EHCPs, education, health and care plans. There were statements under the old system, more children getting that support. You shall understand I can't comment on the individual case that she mentions, but I would mention to her the SEND and alternative provision action plan that we have in place.
Teresa Villiers.
Can I welcome the substantial additional funding that's been given to maintain nursery schools in my constituency in Barnet? And will the Minister agree it's really vital that we continue to increase funding for all Barnet schools?
Deputy Speaker, she is as ever a great champion and advocate for Barnet schools and indeed for maintained nursery schools. And I do agree with her that maintained nursery schools do play a unique role in our system carrying out those particular functions.
Shadow Minister Catherine McKinnell.
Last year, the National Audit Office reported 700,000 children being taught in schools needing major rebuilding works. On top of RAC, construction issues are emerging daily with block and beam, high alumina cement and asbestos, all long past their shelf life, up in North Tyneside, down to Luton and beyond. 14 years of Conservative governments have left children learning under props and in porta cabins and sheds. Given it seems the government's plan seems to be to leave it for the next Labour government to sort this out, can the Minister at least tell us the latest estimate of the total schools repair bill?
Madam Deputy Speaker, keeping our school estate in the right condition for optimally educating children is, of course, of the foremost importance, and we have allocated £15 billion since 2015 to keep schools safe and operational. I pay particular tribute to everybody who's been involved in the most recent issue around RAC, both schools and pupils who have dealt with that, and also colleagues who have been involved in making sure that we get to the point that we are now, where all schools have been told what will happen, either a grant for remediation or indeed being part of the school rebuilding programme.
Daniel Zeichler.
Number 4, please, Madam Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Our Send an AP Improvement Plan, published last March, includes the development of new national standards to improve provision in mainstream settings for children with special educational needs. And for children requiring a special school place, last week we announced funding for an additional wave of 15 special free schools. This is on top of the 108 we have opened since 2010 and the additional 77 approved to open.
Daniel Zeichler.
I go into schools in my constituency in Cambridge virtually every week, and what I'm seeing is more and more schools struggling with the numbers of SEND pupils they have, both in terms of finance and staffing. And on top of that, I see too many of them now having to literally go out to fetch children into school in the morning, and actually having to have social workers based in their schools. So this is not about individual schools, it's a systemic problem. What is the government doing about this?
Well, what we're doing specifically in Cambridgeshire is there's been a 27% increase in the per head funding for special educational needs since 2021-22 over those 3 years. There's a pipeline special free school and 2 LA special competition free schools in Cambridgeshire. And Cambridge is also part of our safety valve programme, which helps authorities to run a sustainable special educational needs system.
Laing.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. And I wonder if my honourable friend may be able to help my constituent, Ella Wakely, who is disabled and travels to her college on the bus. However, her blue badge doesn't enable her to have free transport for herself and her assistant until 09:30 hours, which is a little late for the start of the school day. Is there anything he may be able to do to assist?
Can I thank my honourable friend for raising this case? I obviously don't know the specifics, but if she writes to me, I will happily look at it.
Shadow Minister Helen Hayes.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. High-quality early years education can be transformational for children with special educational needs, helping to ensure their needs are identified and supported at the most important time for their development. However, last year, fewer than 1 in 5 local authorities in England reported having sufficient childcare places for disabled children. This is a shameful failure. Is the Minister confident that the families with a disabled child will be able to access the childcare they are entitled to from April?
We're doing 2 things on the issue the Honourable Lady raises. One is we're reviewing the Special Educational Needs Inclusion Fund as we roll out the new entitlements to make sure that that's working appropriately with the new entitlements. But the other thing we do is we put in place a contractor, because there's a statutory duty on local authorities to make sure they have the places for all children, including those with special educational needs, and they work with local authorities to make sure that those will be in place.
John Penrose.
Question number 5, Madam Deputy Speaker.
It is essential that young people are equipped to make important financial decisions later in life. My right honourable friend will recall our curriculum reforms, and the National Curriculum for Mathematics and Secondary Citizenship does equip pupils with essential knowledge, understanding and practical skills needed to manage their money.
Speaker, the Minister is absolutely right that good financial education helps people avoid debts and poverty and build up a savings cushion against a rainy day. Prevention is undoubtedly better than cure. But while there's statutory guidance to ensure students learn about threats like drugs or unplanned pregnancy, money and finance is much more optional. Shouldn't we make sure it's taken just as seriously as everything else?
I do agree with him that it must be taken just as seriously. And there is content actually in various different parts of the curriculum, obviously in mathematics, which is statutory all the way through school from key stages 1 to 4, but also in secondary citizenship. Further, there are elements in computing, which is particularly relevant to things like online fraud. And in RSHE, we also cover some aspects of fraud and indeed other things like gambling. But I do absolutely agree with him that it's very important to keep these things under review.
Chris Stevens.
Number 6, Madam Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The Honourable Gentleman will know that higher education is a devolved matter and each administration is responsible for determining the student finance arrangements that apply to students eligible for funding.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. New data reveals that in most areas of England, state school pupils who have received free school meals have less than 1 in 4 chance of entering higher education. And one reason for that is that poorer students decide not to pursue that path because of the prospect of being saddled with huge debt, which takes decades to clear. So does the Government believe that they should follow the Scottish Government's example and abolish tuition fees so that education can be made accessible to all?
Well, this government believes you need to be fair to students but fair to the taxpayers as well. And it is worth noting that those from disadvantaged backgrounds are 74% in England more likely to go to university than they were in 2010. And we put together a substantial package to help students with the cost of living, including a £286 million welfare support fund, which we give to the OFS to ensure that students with difficulties are helped.
Shadow Minister Matt Weston.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Following last year's 2.8%, the Government has just announced a paltry 2.5% increase in maintenance loans this September. With a compound inflation rate of 15%, this amounts to a massive real terms cut. Meanwhile, the Welsh Government has announced a 3.7% increase, and even in Scotland, there will be a £2,500 special support loan for all students. Across the country, students are being forced into working multiple jobs to try and make ends meet. What has this government got against students?
Well, I'm proud, Madam Deputy Speaker, that we have record numbers of students going to university. I already mentioned the disadvantaged 74% more likely to go to university than ever before. I'll tell you what we're doing to help students. We've got a £286 million welfare fund that we give to the OFS. We've increased loans by 2.8%. We've frozen tuition fees. Families across the country have been given on average £3,700 to help with energy bills and other bills. We've given hundreds of £1 million to the Household Support Fund to support working families, all families. And of course, students know that they can have their loans reassessed if the family income falls below 15%. And finally, Madam Deputy Speaker, we've introduced degree apprenticeships so students don't need to take out a loan, but they can earn while they learn and get a good skilled job at the end.
Barry Sherman.
Question number 7, Deputy Speaker.
Supporting teacher wellbeing is crucial to our commitment for a supportive culture in schools and also for encouraging teacher retention. It's why we co-created the Education Staff Wellbeing Charter with the education sector and have invested over £1 million in school leader mental health and wellbeing support.
Barry Sherman.
Madam Deputy Speaker, isn't the truth that retention's down, recruitment's down, early retirements are up? What's he going to do something to boost the morale of teachers who say to me, wouldn't it be wonderful to have a cabinet that actually had been to the state sector education and sent their children to state schools?
Well, Madam Deputy Speaker, I think he needs to do some research before he starts asking questions in Parliament. And can I just say that on recruitment and retention, I join him in stressing the importance of retention. That's what we are absolutely focused on, including through our workload programme. We have a very good set of scholarships and bursaries for encouraging entry, and a range of different routes into teaching to get the full range of talent that can benefit our children and young people.
Sir David Evan.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Would my right honourable friend agree that good and enthusiastic teachers are absolutely vital to ensure we have good, successful schools and pupils? However, what more can be done to assist schools with discipline and truancy issues, which will obviously help teacher morale if they could have some more support?
Madam Deputy Speaker, he's absolutely right about the importance of brilliant teachers, and I think he may have some personal experience of that. He's also right about the central importance of behaviour, and we do know that in retention, it's one of the things that we hear back in surveys. We know that we have to improve further on this. It's one of the reasons we have the network of behaviour hubs, so that schools can learn one from the other about what works best.
SNP spokesman Carol Monaghan.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Morale amongst teachers and support staff is affected by their pay and working conditions, and now the teachers are being threatened with minimum service levels which would limit their fundamental right to strike. Yep. Surely he can recognise that this course of action will lower morale further and will ultimately impact the recruitment and retention of teaching staff.
Madam Deputy Speaker, nobody is talking about taking away the right which she referred to, which is the right to strike. All we are seeking to do is to balance that right, which we absolutely recognise and protect, with the right of a child to have an education.
Mark François.
Thank you, Ma'am. Number 8, please.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I'm pleased to inform the House that 2 new special schools opened in Essex last year, with another in the pipeline. We have also provided £26 million of capital funding to Essex over the last 2 years to create more places for children with special educational needs or who require alternative provision.
Mark François.
Last July, standing here, I launched a campaign for a new special needs school in South Essex. In February this year, working very closely with Essex County Council, who I commend for their efforts, we were able to announce a consultation to build a brand new special needs school in Rayleigh for 100+ pupils, a through school for years 3 to 18, to open in the 2025-26 academic year. It's gone down very well locally, but the one concern is, at the moment it's 100+ pupils. Given the great demand for places, a lot of people would prefer something nearer 200. Is there any way, perhaps with a little help from the department, we might be able to achieve that too?
Well, my honourable friend is running an excellent campaign, and we're very impressed with the speed with which Essex has moved to consultation. While I can't preempt the decision the department will make, what we've heard so far suggests it will be a very strong case that is put to the department. And we are also about to allocate the remaining £900 million of capital funding for special educational needs schools, of which Essex will, of course, benefit.
Displacing. Dame Maria Miller.
Number 9, Madam Deputy Speaker.
Secretary of State.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Under the last Labour government, only 68% of schools were rated good or outstanding, letting down a generation of children. Thanks to this Conservative government, that number now stands at nearly 90%. In the last year alone, 214,000 more children now attend good or outstanding schools. And I was delighted that this now includes the Lord Derby Academy in Knowsley, where I visited last week. Our plan to give every child a world-class education is working. Labour have no plan. Remember, the party opposite has twice stood on a manifesto to abolish Ofsted, and it's clear that every time Labour get into power, children's education suffers.
Dame Maria Miller.
Madam Deputy Speaker, 9 out of 10 of the schools in my constituency are now good or outstanding, reflecting this government's commitment to high standards and the incredible hard work of staff and their school leadership. Special schools have struggled to achieve the same in my constituency. How is my right honourable friend helping them to get to where we want them to be, which is to all be good or outstanding?
Well, my right honourable friend is absolutely right. Basingstoke schools have been transformed over the last decade, up from just 52% good or outstanding under Labour. To drive improvement in special schools, we have recently brought in two of our strongest specialist multi-academy trusts. Solent Academy Trust is now responsible for Dove House School, whilst Chiltern Way Academy Trust will shortly be taking over 3 local underperforming special and alternative provision schools, 2 of which will receive significant capital investment from the department to support the education of vulnerable children.
Toby Perkins.
Number 10, please, Mum.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. 65% of all apprenticeship starts so far this year have been at levels 2 and 3, with level 3 remaining the most popular level, accounting for 43% of all starts. Over 360 apprenticeship standards are at levels 2 and 3, more than half of all apprenticeships.
Toby Perkins.
I can understand why the Minister didn't refer to the trends, because he knows that level 2 apprenticeships are way down. The government's reforms have seen level 2 apprenticeship starts fall by 2/3 since 2012-13, and the number of people employed in an apprenticeship with an SME has fallen 49% since the introduction of the levy. Now, I know the Minister talks powerfully about apprenticeships, but why does he think that young people are half as likely to be on an SME apprenticeship now than they were when the levy was introduced?
I know the honourable gentleman, and I respect him hugely, but I know he's a bruiser, but I have been looking forward to his question. You know, I thought he would be celebrating the 13,000 apprentices in his constituency in Chesterfield since May 2010, or the 11,270 in levels 2 and 3, or the 19.5 million investment in Chesterfield College. And if I were him, I would be urging his party to stop their plans to destroy the apprenticeship levy, which would actually halve the number of apprenticeship starts overall. Yeah, back to square one.
Shadow Minister Seema Malhotra.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. And it isn't just that since the levy was introduced at level 2 and level 3 apprenticeship starts have plummeted by over 50%, but 16 to 18-year-old apprenticeship starts are down by 41%. And the Sutton Trust and LSE research further shows that by 2020, the proportion of apprenticeship starts by those from poorer backgrounds had dropped significantly. Whilst under Labour, opportunities for all our young people to earn and to learn expanded every year, isn't it now painfully clear that the biggest barrier to opportunity is this Tory government?
As always, the front benches is obsessed with quantity over quality. And what we have done is transform the quality of apprenticeships, 70% of occupations, over 680 apprenticeship starts. And there has been actually 6% increase over the same period last year in under 19 starts. Overall, starts up 3% over the same period last year. Achievements up. That's the crucial thing. Achievements up 22%. Female STEM starts up by 7.5%. Those with disabilities up by 6.3%. Those from ethnic minorities starts up to 15.4% compared to 10.6% in 2010. So not only are we focusing on quality over quantity, we're also improving the number of starts and achievements as well.
David Simmons.
Number 12, Madam Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. We are removing one of the biggest barriers to parents working by vastly increasing the amount of free childcare that working families can access. By 27-28, we expect to be spending in excess of £8 billion every year on free hours and early education, double what we are spending now, to help working families with their childcare costs.
David Simmons.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. My constituent, Diane Bennett, who runs a small group of very popular local nurseries, it tells me how appreciative she is of the government's plan for childcare and early education, in particular the £500 million of additional funding that's been secured. But clearly, as she and other nursery providers look ahead to make their plans, she is concerned that whilst there is a clear plan from this government, there is no clear plan coming from the opposition. Can my honourable friend set her mind at rest?
Absolutely. Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. My honourable friend is right. The Chancellor last week announced that we will be increasing rates until the end of 2027 for early years providers, something they very much asked for. And I can't give my honourable friend any reassurance about Labour's plan because they have no plan. The Shadow Secretary of State says that childcare is her top priority, and yet she has no plan for it. So what does that say if that's her top priority? Parents should be very worried about Labour getting into power, both about the childcare they rely on and about every other area of education.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Families right across my constituency find it increasingly hard to access affordable childcare locally. And speaking to two providers last week, it's clear the current level and structure of free hours funding, even with the government's recent announcement, isn't going to go far enough to allow them to expand with the capacity and staffing costs that would entail. What reassurances can the Minister offer families in my area that finally they're going to get on top of the childcare crisis we're facing and make sure my families won't have to go without?
What I'd say to the Honourable Gentleman is we set our rates based on a survey of more than 9,000 providers to get those right. And last year, we saw a 13,000 increase in the number of staff in the sector and a 15,000 increase in the number of places. We work with every local authority to make sure they've got sufficient places, and I'm confident his area will have that too.
Siobhan Bailey. Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Gloucestershire County Council cares about our childcare businesses, and they listen to my calls to make sure that there's monthly payments going to childminders. And the Chancellor, we've heard, has got another slug of money, 500 million quid. But my childminds are telling me that things like the proposed date of payment means that they are still out of pocket and that they still can't pay their staff. So the kind of all the work is not being felt on the ground. Will the Minister meet GCC and I to iron out some of these mechanical issues at local authority level so that everybody can benefit from what the government is doing?
Can I thank my honourable friend for continuing to champion this sector? She's absolutely right about the importance of paying on a monthly basis, something we encourage all local authorities to do, and we'll be saying more about that in the coming weeks, and I'll be happy to meet with her to discuss this further.
Munira Wilson.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The Minister will already be aware that private equity firms have been causing great damage in other parts of the education sector, such as children's homes and special schools, but we're now starting to see this in childcare. Oakley Capital have acquired Lilliput's nursery in Hersham and Elmbridge and hiked up prices by a staggering 25%. That's an additional £365 per child per month, which parents simply can't afford. So does the Minister agree with me that it's quite wrong for private equity firms to be making these eye-watering profits on the backs of hard-working parents? And what is he going to do to stop this happening?
Well, the Honourable Lady is right to raise the issue of profiteering that we have seen in some areas of children's social care, which we will be setting out some steps. We will be taking on that shortly. I don't know the specifics of the case she's just referenced, but again, if she writes to me, I'll be happy to look at it.
Sir Simon Clarke.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Number 13.
Skelton Primary School was announced in the second round of the school rebuilding programme in July 2021. It's the second school in a batch being delivered by the contractor Tilbury Douglas. Therefore, we expect construction works on this complete new build will begin in late summer and completing next year.
Simon Clarke.
I thank my right honourable friend for his answer. That's really reassuring news, because Skelton Primary is a very good school, but it is in need of a comprehensive rebuild. And the head teacher, Mrs Walker, worked through last summer in the expectation that the rebuild could begin as soon as this Easter. That hasn't happened because the builders came back in saying that more money was required. Can my right honourable friend assure me that that date of the end of this summer is something which is now fixed? And would it be possible for me, please, to meet the civil service team in charge to discuss this with them further?
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I acknowledge all that he says. I can reassure him that the scope of works, including all funding committed, has been confirmed on this new bill. But of course, if it would be helpful to have a meeting, of course I'd be very happy to.
Greg Smith.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Number 14.
It's not me. Sorry. Apologies, Madam Deputy Speaker. Yes, thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I noticed that the front bench opposite didn't mention the 222,320 starts on degree apprenticeships since their introduction in 2014-15. There are now over 170 employed design degree level apprenticeships available, including in occupations such as doctor, space engineer and midwife. And we're spending an additional 40 million in the next 2 years to support providers promote degree apprenticeships.
Greg Smith.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I thank my right honourable friend for that answer. And businesses in my constituency regularly tell me that they much prefer apprentices and those that have taken degree-level apprenticeships to traditional graduates. That came up time and time again in a recent engagement event I had with Buckinghamshire Business First at Urcol in Prince's Risborough. So can my right honourable friend tell me what more the government is going to do to send a clear signal to all pupils across the whole country that degree-level apprenticeships are out there, they should sign up for them and have fantastic careers ahead of them?
Yeah. So my honourable friend is absolutely right, and I know that he is a champion of the automotive industry and motorsport industry in his constituency. He will be pleased to know that we now have UCAS for apprenticeships, which will transform the apprenticeship scheme when people and students apply for university or apprenticeships. We've got the Apprenticeship Skills and Knowledge Network going to thousands of schools, having interaction with many hundreds of thousands of students. And as I've mentioned, we've also spending 40 million to promote degree apprenticeships amongst providers. And we've strengthened legislation to ensure that schools do more to promote apprenticeships and technical and vocational education.
Andrew Selous.
Number 15, Madam Deputy Speaker.
I thank the honourable gentleman for his question, and I know that he also is a champion of FE and skills and has asked a lot about these over the past months. We want apprenticeships to be part of the career conversations in every school. We've strengthened the law so that schools must offer pupils at least 6 education and training providing encounters. We've invested £3.2 million in the Apprenticeship Skills and Knowledge Network that's reached over 2,300 schools and colleges in 2022-23.
Andrew Selous.
So Van Dyke Upper School, which I visited last week in Leighton Buzzard, tells every student about apprenticeships and has an excellent apprenticeships ambassador. But the Minister will know that sadly not every school does this. Most teachers have been to university, they may not know about apprenticeships. So what can we do to make sure that every school does what Van Dyke does, tells every student about apprenticeships? As for the right students, they can be completely life-transforming.
Well, again, my honourable friend speaks with a lot of wisdom. I congratulate the work of Van Dyke Upper School. I've seen apprenticeships fairs and apprenticeship careers days in the Oasis Academy in Brislington, and there's huge amounts of work going on with the Careers Enterprise Company and the Apprenticeship Ambassador Network to have a network member engaged with every secondary school and college. And I've mentioned some of the other things we are doing to promote careers and apprenticeships in all our schools.
Jane Hunt.
Number 16, Madam Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. We know that with the right preparation and support, the overwhelming majority of young people with SEND are capable of sustained and paid employment. The National Careers Service offers young people with SEND aged 19-24 tailored support from Careers Advisor, and we're investing 80 million until 2025 to build capacity in the supported internship programme. We've also launched a mentoring pilot for disabled apprentices.
Jane Hunt.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Homefield College, based in Mount Sorrel and Sileby in my constituency, is a community-based independent specialist college that offers education, training and independent living skills for people with learning disabilities and communication difficulties. What steps are being taken by the department to not only promote and support these excellent FE colleges, but also help create opportunities for work experience, life skills and development for students so that they may go on to live happy and fulfilling lives as an integral part of their local community?
So I was very pleased to visit Loughborough not so long ago with my honourable friend, and she's hugely passionate about FE and skills, and I know well about Homefield College. It's a brilliant college. I'm glad it was allocated £95,000 for capital spend recently. We have the £18 million supported internship scheme for those with special educational needs. We've got an FE bursary scheme for special needs teachers. We've got specialist National Careers Service advice for young people, and we've got the SEND Code of Practice to prepare young people for adulthood. So we're doing everything possible to ensure that we support FE and those with special educational needs to get on the ladder of opportunity.
Steve Tuckwell.
Question 17, Madam Deputy Speaker.
Madam Deputy Speaker, great teaching is truly transformational in children's lives. Thanks to our brilliant teachers and the focus on high standards in the curriculum, attendance and behaviour, 9 and 10-year-olds in England are now the 4th best in the world for reading.
Steve Tuckwell.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I thank my honourable friend for their answer. We have seen how children in English schools are the best readers in the Western world thanks to this government. In Uxbridge and South Ruislip, we see how this work is being translated into outstanding or good Ofsted ratings. Will my honourable friend join me in congratulating the teams at Ruislip High School and the Children's Services team at Hillingdon Council for their recent outstanding rating, as well as pledging to work with me to ensure that the children across Uxbridge and South Ruislip have the best possible education?
Well, Madam Deputy Speaker, I do join my honourable friend in congratulating both Ruislip High School and Hillingdon Council's Children's Services team. Nearly 90% of schools now in Uxbridge and South Ruislip are Ofsted good or outstanding, up from 70% in 2010, following the great work of teachers and our relentless focus on improving school standards.
Stella Creasy.
Question number 19, Madam Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. To ensure high-quality childcare for children with special educational needs, we're investing hundreds of millions of pounds to increase hourly funding rates, increase dedicated additional SEND funding, such as the Disability Access Fund for all eligible children, and funding training of early years special educational needs coordinators.
Stella Creasy.
To the surprise of no one who looked at what the government was proposing, my inbox, like many other MPs' inbox, is now full of parents who cannot get the 15 free hours in April without paying a massive hike in their fees. And one group particularly struggling is parents of children with special educational needs or a disability. This is entirely predictable because the government's own impact assessment said explicitly that changing the ratios could have a, quote, negative impact on providing places for children with special educational needs. Now, the Minister stood there on the 22nd of January and he made a pledge to me that every parent who wanted the 15 free hours with an eligible 2-year-old would be able to get that place. Can he remake that pledge today explicitly for parents of children who've got special educational needs and that they won't have to pay a higher fee? Yes or no?
I appreciate it must be very frustrating for the Honourable Lady, who genuinely cares about childcare, to be part of a party that cannot be bothered to come up with any plan for it and has had to ask someone else to write them one because they can't think of one. But on her specific issue, as I said earlier, we are working with every local authority to make sure they have the places they need for all children.
Duncan Baker.
Question number 20, please, Madam Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The Department for Education recently reviewed the mandatory initial teacher training core content framework alongside the early career framework, and particular attention was given to the needs of trainees and early career teachers when supporting pupils with special educational needs.
Duncan Baker.
Madam Deputy Speaker, that's a very useful response at the dispatch box. I'm very grateful. I recently brought my 10-minute rule bill to the House, which was specifically about mandating autism training into the initial teacher training framework, because we all know that early identification is absolutely vital. And if education staff all had autism training right from the very start, we could put in place a system so that autistic children get that support very, very early on in their school career. So would the Minister just assure me of the steps that he has taken to include autism training specifically in that initial teacher training, and then meet with me again just to discuss supporting my 10-minute rule bill?
Minister.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. My honourable friend's running a very strong campaign. From September 2025, the initial teacher training and early career framework will contain significantly more content on supporting pupils with special educational needs, including autistic pupils. And we've also committed 12 million to the Universal Services programme, which has so far given training to over 135,000 professionals regarding autism awareness, but I'm happy to meet with my honourable friend again.
Thank you. We now move to topical questions. Darren Henry.
Topical 1, Madam Deputy Speaker.
Madam Deputy Speaker, we are delivering the largest ever expansion of childcare in England's history, which begins rolling out in just 3 weeks' time from the 1st of April. We've done this before, when we more than doubled the entitlements of the last Labour government, and I'm delighted to update the House that our latest projections show more than 150,000 new funded places will be secured by early April. We expect that number to grow further throughout the months ahead, saving parents over £550 million in childcare costs. April is just the first phase. From September, parents with children from 9 months until they start school will be able to benefit from this support. Only the Conservatives have a plan for hard-working parents, which they can rely on as they grow their families. Labour have no plan, so why don't they support ours to give families the certainty they deserve?
Darren Henry.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I recently visited Fairfield Spencer Academy in my Broxtowe constituency, where I met with Craig Jones, doing good work with the Junior Adventures Group, a leading provider of school-age childcare. During my visit, I was able to observe staff as they provided crucial support to children beyond regular school hours. However, it is evident that this level of support is not consistent around the country, and the school-age childcare sector needs reforms in terms of funding. I welcome the £289 million for the wraparound care sector, but can my right honourable friend commit to introduce a universal funding model linked to parent earnings similar to that of early years, which would allow for providers to remain affordable and sustainable?
I thank my honourable friend for his questions. We're making wraparound childcare available for all parents who need it and supporting hard-working parents to balance having a family and a successful career. Our £289 million investment, as mentioned, will help schools develop exciting programmes before and after school, which will provide more flexibility for working parents. And I'm sure the Minister for Children, Families and Wellbeing will be happy to meet with him to keep him updated on progress.
Shadow Secretary of State, Bridget Phillipson.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Neither the Secretary of State nor any Treasury Minister met with representatives of the early years sector in the months before last year's budget announcement on childcare. Now, with just 3 weeks to go, parents, providers and even their own civil servants are sounding the alarm. Over 7 in 10 providers say they're not going to offer additional places. A quarter say they're likely to close within a year. So will the Secretary of State now guarantee that all parents will be able to access the childcare places that she promised?
Yeah.
Absolutely, and I set out in my topical statement. And we're working with every local authority to ensure that the places are available. But I'm glad the Honourable Lady mentions childcare, because it's yet another policy that the Labour Party have no plan for. We're delivering the largest expansion of childcare in history, so working parents of children from 9 months to starting school will get 30 hours childcare a week. The real question is, what is Labour's plan? Well, nobody knows, because they don't have one. It's very clear. The Conservatives are the only party with a plan for working parents.
Phillipson.
Well, Madam Deputy Speaker, there's one way we can find out what the public think, and that's by calling a general election. Last week, we heard another promise from the Chancellor, a new funding mechanism for early years providers. Talk of hundreds of millions of pounds more for the sector. But strangely, Madam Deputy Speaker, no news on where that promised £500 million will actually be coming from. Nothing at all in the budget documents. So will the Secretary of State tell us today where is the money coming from? Or is this yet another reckless, unfunded pledge without a plan from the Conservatives?
Well, the Honourable Lady, there would be no childcare on the table if the party opposite were in charge. So, no, I would urge all working parents to support this party that has a plan for working parents. And the £500 million will be fully funded as everything we do, and it secures the rates in the future so that we can ensure that businesses up and down the country have the confidence to invest. The party opposite have absolutely no plan for childcare and absolutely no plan to support working parents in this country.
Chairman of the Select Committee, Robin Walker.
My right honourable friend has rightly championed childcare and early education. I congratulate her on the £500 million in this year's budget, on top of the billions committed last year to this sector. It's in the Red Book. I'm happy to meet with her to show her where it is. But can I urge her to keep pressing on some of the committee's other recommendations on extending family hubs, removing rates and VAT from childcare providers, and reforming tax-free childcare to drive take-up?
This Conservative government is backing this country's brilliant childcare providers as we roll out our historic childcare offer. And as my honourable friend points out, it's on top of the rollout of universal services in family hubs as well. To give certainty to the early years sector, we've confirmed average funding rates will increase over the next 2 financial years, details in the Red Book as stated, giving them the confidence to invest and expand. Only the Conservatives have a plan for hard-working parents.
SNP spokesman Carol Monaghan.
Madam Deputy Speaker, academic independence is central to a functioning democracy. So in light of her colleague, the Secretary of State for Science's false accusations levelled at an academic on the board of UKRI and her subsequent apology, what action is the Secretary of State taking to assure academics that they remain free to make legitimate comments on issues of concern?
Well, of course, academic independence and the ability to speak and speak freely is very important. It's something that we hold very dearly and we must protect at all costs within our universities and in our academic institutions. That is why we did actually bring forward the Free Speech Act and also have a Free Speech Director in the Office for Students who has taken up post and will obviously be there to ensure that we do whatever we can to ensure we protect that in our country.
Gareth Johnson.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I have 4 grammar schools in my Dartford constituency, and they provide an important and very popular element to a diverse education system. So therefore, will the Minister please commit today to continue her support of grammar schools both now and in the future?
Madam Deputy Speaker, yes, I support all great schools in our diverse school system, including strong grammar schools, and I do continue to encourage grammar schools to increase the access for disadvantaged pupils, which can help so much with social mobility.
Graham Morris.
Acre Primary School in Peterlee was given a 25-year life expectancy when it was built in 1950. It has asbestos in every wall and a metal structure made from recycled World War II aircraft. Trinity Primary School in Seaham has lifting floors, rising damp, black mould caused by a faulty roof, leaking pipes and poor screeding. It's a 5.3 million school that was built in 2008 by Sergo. Can the Schools Minister explain to parents how their children are supposed to flourish and prosper in such an inadequate educational environment?
Well, Madam Deputy Speaker, in the Spending Review 2021, we did commit £19 billion for school capital over the 3 years. I do not know the specifics of the schools that he specifically mentioned. I will be very happy, of course, to meet with him to hear further.
Mark Eastwood.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I recently held my 3rd annual Skills and Apprenticeship Fair at the iconic Pioneer House at Kirklees College building in Dewsbury. Would my right honourable friend agree to come visit the college and meet some of the apprentices, employers and the college staff who helped make the event a great success?
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I'd be absolutely delighted to visit Kirklees College. I congratulate my honourable friend for his apprenticeship fair. I know that the college has a great record on apprenticeship achievements, but also that 970 apprenticeships have started their future, and that overall in Kirklees since 2010 you've had something like 12,300 apprenticeship starts in the honourable gentleman, my honourable friend's constituency.
Alex Cunningham.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. There are an estimated 6,000 children in England attending illegal or unregistered schools that provide limited or no appropriate education, often in an unsafe environment. Does the Minister agree that while efforts to introduce a home education register to keep track of children outside of a school setting are welcome, more legislation is needed to close loopholes exploited by proprietors of illegal schools and ensure children are kept safe and educated appropriately?
Madam Deputy Speaker, the honourable gentleman will know, of course, of our plans and our support for the for the private members bill. He will also remember, he and I used to serve together on the Education Select Committee back in the day. These have been issues that have been long-standing, including under previous governments. He will know from the Schools White Paper the other things we have committed to when legislative time allows.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I recently had the pleasure of visiting Berrenarbour Primary School and discussed the challenges rurality imposes on the school and how hard the staff have worked to overcome them. But can I ask what steps the department is taking to support rural primary schools, which often have a vast catchment area and difficult buildings?
I do recognise what she says about rurality. Of course, the lump sum element in the funding formula is important for small schools. We've also more than doubled the national funding formula sparsity funding in 3 years, with £6.5 million for Devon in 2024-25. We're also investing to improve the condition of school buildings, and Devon Council received an annual capital allocation of £3.5 million this year.
Mary Glendon.
Madam Deputy Speaker, the ministers will be aware that 4 schools in North Tyneside closed just over a month ago because of a structural problem not related to RAC. The 1,700 pupils have been relocated thanks to the council and the schools working together. Can the minister assure me that there will be funding made available to either rebuild or restructure the schools as soon as it's needed?
Yes, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I'm aware that the Honourable Lady has met with my noble friend, the Baroness Barron. Inspections are ongoing by structural engineers, as I think she will know, but early indications that this was a historic and isolated issue in the way the school was built. We continue to work with the local authority and with the school, and I would of course be happy, if appropriate and if it would help, also to meet with her in due course.
Tim Lawton.
Madam Speaker, about 10 years ago, following the government's reforms, the number of adoptions in England doubled. 10 years on, they've halved. Why?
Minister.
My honourable friend raised a very important point. We're taking a number of actions to increase the number of people that adopt, that foster, and also to support kinship care as well. But I'd be happy to discuss this matter with him further.
Rachel Maskell.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Many of the children who are not in school in York with special educational needs, mental health challenges and childhood trauma are not able to access their education because of insufficient estate and placement and the environment and specialist personnel. What are government doing to ensure that every area has a workforce plan, an estates plan and the funding to match?
Through our Send an AP improvement plan, we're taking a whole range of actions, which has included increasing the number of special school places by more than 60,000 since this government came to power, as well as training a lot more special educational needs coordinators as well.
Dr James Davis.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. Head teachers in Denbighshire, Flintshire and Conway have recently written to all parents expressing the dire financial situation facing their schools. My understanding is that schools in England are receiving the highest funding ever per pupil in real terms. Will my honourable friend confirm that this is the case and outline what discussions he's had with the Welsh Government to ensure schools in Wales also see the benefit of this funding?
Well, Madam Deputy Speaker, I regret that as education is a devolved matter, it is the party opposite who are in charge with education in Wales. It does really sadden me to hear of children in his constituency suffering from their mismanagement of that system, and despite the great work of brilliant and inspiring teachers in Wales, he's absolutely right that in England under this government funding is at a record level. Meanwhile, in Wales, I'm sad to say that education is not only the lowest in the UK but also lower than the OECD average, and I'm afraid it is clear that every time Labour get into power, children's education suffers.
Barry Sherman.
Madam Deputy Speaker, the Secretary of State loves plans. What's a plan to reinvigorate and change the course of Ofsted?
Well, I was delighted to attend the ASCL conference alongside Sir Martin Oliver, who announced the big listen, and that is part of making sure that we get the cultural reforms that are required. I am concerned by reports that some teachers and head teachers feel that they are not listened to or they're treated in a dismissive or rude manner. And I do hope that everybody will engage fully with the Big Listen, because I do think that we need to make sure that it's respectful and treats our service and our teachers and head teachers with respect.
Sir Michael Ellis.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. At Cambridge University, a barbaric vandal wearing a £1,000 Mulberry backpack destroyed an historic painting because she was so full of hate for Jews that Lord Balfour's letter of 1917, she felt, gave her the moral superiority to destroy a valuable painting of him. Now, this shines a light on the pernicious atmosphere faced by Jewish students in this country, at universities across the country, with calls for Zionists off our campus now shamefully normalised, and this Zionist really means Jews. So what steps does my right honourable friend propose to take to convey to university heads that they have a legal and a moral obligation to stamp anti-Semitism out?
I thank my right honourable and learned friend for his question. I would say that Arthur Balfour was a great man, identified the need for a homeland for the British Jews, and that's why the anti-Semites don't like it and are slashing his picture. We're spending a lot of time with Jewish student groups, myself and the Secretary of State. I've been to universities like Leeds to spend time with Jewish students because of the chaplain being attacked there. We're working with Universities UK. We've announced a £7 million package to give to Jewish student groups and the Jewish chaplaincy service and other groups to try and stop anti-Semitism on campus. We're developing a quality seal as well to ask universities to adopt so that they deal with anti-Semitic incidents properly. And last week, myself and the Secretary of State had a meeting with the Office for Students to make it very clear to the regulator that anti-Semitism across our universities is not acceptable.
Thank you. I appreciate there were two honourable members still trying to ask questions, but maybe they've forgotten they've already had an opportunity and have each asked a question earlier this afternoon. And I know that the honourable gentleman for Huddersfield got away with having 2 questions, but I often make an exception for him due to his longevity in this place. And so it's been suggested to me that I should use the word seniority. I think that does have a better ring to it. The honourable gentleman for Huddersfield's seniority in this place. Thank you. And so we progress to the urgent question. I'll pause for just a moment to allow for a change of dramatis personae on the front benches.